It's been a while since I've talked about Plants vs. Zombies, and ever since played a special something, I wanted to talk about it again. But let's get on with the context first. Plants vs. Zombies is definitely a very good game. Is it the best game in the world? Not really. Yes, it's true that there's a lot of things improved from the first game, like the art style for one. Yes, I think this game looks better than the first one. Go ahead and tell me why I'm wrong. But there are a lot of things to not like about this game as well. The fast paced gameplay is great, but that can also be viewed as overwhelming. The plant food gimmick is good, but plant food can be kind of situational. But that's not to say that the first game was very perfect either. Because just like the second game, the first game has a lot of issues. The slow paced gameplay can be seen as great, but it can also be seen as boring. Now, which camp do I fall into? Honestly, I'm somewhere in the middle. I find Plants vs. Zombies 1 to be a little too slow, but Plants vs. Zombies 2 to be a little too fast. I want something in the middle. Something that won't have me wait for a long time, but at the same time, stuff that gives me time to prepare. Plants vs. Zombies 2 is definitely a game that kind of meets the niche, but I don't know. I think with a few tweaks, this game could have been the perfect sequel to 1. And I'm not saying a full on overhaul, I'm just saying a few tweaks. If only we could see what that was like. Oh, wait a minute. I think there is a way we can see that. 1 second. Here we go. Plants vs. Zombies mods. Or modifications. Are definitely a thing that exist. Okay, that joke is starting to get old now. But Plants vs. Zombies mods have been a thing for a long time. However, you're probably not familiar with many of the big ones. Or the good ones. You're probably familiar with the ones that are a little crazy, like, well, the ones that introduce plants that instantly kill zombies, a bajillion zombies, that stuff. But what about mods that try to continue the base game, that try to make things a lot more interesting? Well, that's what this mod tries to do, for one, and what the other two mods are here to do. I'm talking about Plants vs. Zombies 2 Reflourished, Altverse, and Requiem. Now, I should say real quick, if you're going to download a mod, do it responsibly. And by that, I mean do your research before you do any downloading. Basically, if it looks suspicious, 9 times out of 10 it will be. So, yeah. Basically, just do your research before you download. But, now that you know what you should do for your downloads, let me tell you why you should download these mods. Starting with Reflourished. You may not have heard a lot about PVZ2 mods, but if you have, you've definitely heard of this one. Reflourished is kind of a big deal in the community. What Reflourished tries to do is take the base game and basically just expand upon it. Not change it too much, just adding a few tweaks and maybe a few new worlds if it feels like it. There are a lot of things changed from the first game, such as, for instance, buffs and nerfs to the plants. For instance, as you can see on the left side of the screen, Wintermelon does in fact cost more than it does in the base game, which is a bit odd and is one of the more controversial things about this mod. But honestly, it's not that bad. However, I can see how some people can be turned off by the sudden sun cost increase. Now, another thing that's a little problematic about this mod is that it takes a little while for it to get going, because the first few worlds are essentially unchanged. Yeah, they have expansions, but you're recommended to complete the other worlds before you start those. So it's gonna take a little while to get going. There is a way to transfer your real progress over into this mod, but if you're starting fresh, it's going to feel a little sluggish. Now, those are all the negatives. For positives, first up, this game runs at a smooth 60 FPS. And if as for another thing, the new worlds are really cool. Holiday Mashup essentially takes the timed events and makes a whole world out of them. And it doesn't do a slapdash job either. Zombies actually have resistances and buffs depending on which holiday they're celebrating, which is kind of an interesting concept. Now, Holiday Mashup is admittedly one of the weaker aspects, but I still think it's a good idea. Maybe maybe the main game should add something like Holiday Mashup. However, where it really gets going is its final world in the Steam Ages. Steam Ages is actually a world that was in the Chinese version of the game. But if you know anything about the Chinese version of the game, you're gonna remember that Steam Ages was a bit buggy. Reflourished irons out the bugs. They're not all gone, but it definitely does fix a lot of them. The new plants and zombies introduced, like Mechanic and Cattail, are so cool. I'm not going to spoil everything in Reflourished, because if you want to check it out, you've just got to. But I will say one more thing. This mod is made for casual players. So if you're one of those sweaty tryhards who likes to get your butt kicked while at the same time kicking the game back, you're going to be a little disappointed in Reflourished, as it doesn't do that until the end. But if you're a casual player who finds PVZ2 to be a little underwhelming and a little bit too, and you find the new plans to be a little too powerful, then Reflourished may be just the mod you're looking for. But if you're also like me and you want to find your perfect middle ground, I think I have another mod to recommend. Plants vs. Zombies 2 Alternate Universe, aka Altverse, is basically what would happen if another version of PopCap took over Plants vs. Zombies 2, and I just really like it. From the very start of the game, you can tell that this is going to be a completely different beast from Plants vs. Zombies 2 base. For example, we got female zombies, we've got portals introduced in the tutorial levels, and coins are actually kind of useful in this game. But another thing you're going to notice is that it follows a 25 sun meta. What does that mean? Sun meta refers to how much sun a sunflower will give you. Normally in Plants vs. Zombies 2, it gives you 50 sun. In this game, it only gives you 25, like the original game. However, to compensate, the sunflower gives sun a lot faster. Now, as for alternate universe, a lot changes. And I mean a lot. Most plants actually get buffs. But to compensate, the game is slightly harder. Not to the point where it is extremely difficult, more like to the point where it's for people who have learned the fundamentals of the game, but aren't exactly veterans yet. That middle ground is where I find myself, and yeah, I love this mod. This game wastes no time, and I really love it for that. It's basically Eclipse, but it's casual friendly. Now, when people hear casual friendly, they sometimes think it's a bad thing, but personally, I think it's a good thing. So, Allverse introduces new plants and new zombies. Like, for example, Void Orchid, who is based off of the Chinese Orchid Mage. And when I say new, I mean new. For example, the Grave Digger zombie that summons graves whenever it dies, meaning you actually have to be careful when you kill it in the Dark Ages. Alternate Universe is definitely a mod that I recommend trying out, and it definitely introduces you to new concepts. Also, they rewrote the dialogue, and I think it's a little better. Okay, I'll stop gushing and tell you about the negatives. Yes, even though this game is quicker to start than Reflourished, it is also a little bit slow on the draw when it comes to showing its full hand. But it does come with a save file that'll speed things up to get to the good stuff. So if you really wanted to skip all the previous stuff, you can. But honestly, I recommend watching the full game. Things in this game are really good. So, in my opinion, Allverse is definitely a better version of Reflourished, and it's definitely the mod I recommend the most. But there is one more mod that I really like. And while I don't think it's as good as Allverse, I definitely think it is still worth your time. Plants vs. Zombies 2 Requiem, aka the mod where you have to buy your plants. Yep, that's how I would describe it. Basically, it's a mod where the coins become really useful, but it's also a mod where the base plants that you have for free are very, very recommended. The game is basically built around the fact that you have the base plants, meaning there's actually a lot of experimentation. And if you think that's the only thing this mod has to offer, you're mistaken. Because, for one thing, if you haven't seen Creep's video on how Requiem changes Frostbite Caves, I highly recommend it. But long story short, it takes some of the worst worlds and makes it good. Like, for example, introducing Icewind Chief Zombie, no, I'm not kidding, that's what his name is, from the Chinese version into the American version, but making him balanced. It also makes it so that heating is not required. I would say all of it, but Creeps does a way better job explaining this mod, and I highly recommend you check him out. Link in the description. There's not a whole lot to say about Requiem. It is a relatively new mod, but honestly, if you're looking for a quick change of pace and more experimentation, I recommend. I do again recommend Reflourished and, more importantly, Allverse. But if you want to check these mods out, I recommend trying them all out because this game is. These mods show you just how good PVZ2 can really be. And even though PVZ2 is a wonderful game as it is, it's not perfect. But with a little bit of tweaking, it can be. So, do you have any mod recommendations in the comments below? Please let me know. And as always, I have been the Gamer Nerd, and why am I recommending you all these mods? It's simple, 'cause I'm crazy! Thank you for watching.